Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
And the game week one, the first 10 fixtures of the Premier League season are over. 370 more to go. But, 10 games in, I'd say, standard eventful weekend of Premier League football. Usual shocks, surprises, some unsurprising outcomes as well. I think it was just generally what you'd expect from the best league in the world.
I think some people need reminding that it's 370 games to go. I think that's
exactly
quite important to say for the FPL managers this morning or this afternoon, depending on when you're listening, or this evening. Great to have the football back. I would say it wasn't too high on its drama over the weekend, but great to have it back. Some good football.
Yeah, I think.
Weather didn't help, by the way. It's hot, and just remember this coming weekend. Possession-based teams are potentially going to kill teams because it's going to be stupid hot this coming weekend again.
We were in the stands yesterday. I took my boys, obviously, and we went. We had the whole day off, so I took them in, went bowling, chilling in the shopping centre. We on the stands, they were like, "Get me back in the shopping centre because it's air conditioned in there." We were sweating buckets. They ran out of water in the stadium in some bottles. They were selling water. You could just tell people were buying them in 3s and 4s. Very difficult. And obviously, when you come against like City, for example, they're going to be.
You're lucky though, aren't you? Because the sun was on the other side of the ground.
Yeah, I'm upper tier, so I don't get the sun in my face. But you're right. It was a very hot weekend. You say not high on drama, but one of the promoted sides taking Liverpool to the wire. That's pretty impressive.
Really
no one saw that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bournemouth, another promoted side that we'd all had dead and buried. When there were hardly any defenders or squad, clean sheet and taking the points from Aston Villa. So I thought it was pretty good from that point of view. With the drama,
all listeners should go and bang their head against the wall for not starting with a Bournemouth defender. Absolutely.
That's not from an FPL point of view. Forget about it from an FPL point of view. But also, I think both of us probably kicking ourselves a little bit that we didn't have the cojones to predict a Brighton win at Man United. I think we both
spoke about it enough.
I think we really wanted to, but just didn't have the guts to go with it. And they went to Old Trafford and played really well and pulled off a good win. I think there was the right amount of good, decent drama. The big boys back in town. He joins the Premier League, and if I'd said to you, Erling Haaland's going to score 2 goals, how do you think he's going to score them? Like the second one, that would be textbook. What you think he's going to do, textbook. So it was good to see. Darwin Nunez, cheeky little finish. I think people got eyes on it. I thought it was a nice.
Little fortunate.
Flick.
Tossing. He tries to flick it, misses it. Tossing kicks it against the back of his heel and it flies in. A little bit fortunate.
Balls in the back of the net, mate. So all in all, weekend of football, actual real football to talk about. So that's what we're going to do this episode, of course, run down the game, see where our thoughts are, obviously give our update on what happened with our FPL teams and the final deadline day dramas of getting your team set up and what have you. And then we'll get into some of the questions that we've had on Twitter as well, all depending on time, can't do like 3-hour podcasts and all that jazz. Friday, for me,
I hated it. Can we have a Saturday deadline next year? It's awful.
Yeah, I get that. You'd obviously the thing is though, you'd had big drama, right? So for me, my big dilemma was always whether if Alisson's not fit, what am I going to do? And it emerged in the presser that he was fit. And then there's the Perisic Doherty drama. And firstly, we have to say that the news that came out was true in the end. Perisic and Doherty didn't play. I only was going with one, being Perisic. You were going with 2, so you were in a very different boat. And I just took the view that he might come on for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, can still do damage. And am I going to want him for the long haul? Like, do I want to be in a situation where I want him and then I've got other problems to fix and I could have just started with him? Sod it. I'm just going to start with him. And so I didn't make any changes to what I'd announced in the deadlines in the final drafts, other than I'd heard obviously the news that Everton had no strikers. And I thought what that was going to mean was that they'd have no out ball and Chelsea would just be able to pile on the pressure. And so I didn't want to play Nathan Patterson. It's like they're going to have to be doing too much defending if they've got no strikers or out ball, that I don't want to play Patterson. I played Pereira instead.
Right choice, by the way.
Well,
a little unlucky there.
Yeah, a little. So that's fine. So that was the only decision I made to my starting lineup. I didn't actually change my squad.
Yeah, it was a different kind of drama for me because we'd obviously the final drafts pod that we did on Friday, we'd pre-recorded on Thursday, straight after Antonio Conte's press conference, where a lot of people had picked out, oh, there's a doubt he's going to start both Perisic and Doherty. And after we'd obviously recorded that, I watched the full press conference that night and was left in no doubt that Doherty and Perisic were going to start. So then we recorded our Patreon podcast, our Game Week 1 preview on the Friday morning, and I was doubled down. I was even more bullish. I was like, I'm definitely doing it. I've got no doubts, actually. I'm not listening to what the journalists are saying and stuff. Literally posted it, the podcast, and saw Paul O'Keefe going in over 24 hours early on a predicted Tottenham team and went, he knows, was basically what I thought as soon as I saw it. And like you, I didn't instantly think, oh, I've got to take them out. I sat and thought about it for quite a while, whether I'm keeping them or not. The conclusion I come to in Doherty's case was, I should explain for those who, hopefully you heard something, because I posted a little short audio everywhere on Friday afternoon once I changed my mind to try and update people to say, look, this guy might well know that these guys can still play, but I'm changing. It's too much for me. So he's an up and coming agent who's got links with the club, basically. And he does this predict Conte thing, which he isn't always right, but there's weird ones in there. Like he predicted Højbjerg not to start at home to Wolves last year. It's the only time he has not been selected to start for Tottenham, and he had it right. So he's definitely got contacts. It was enough information for me to go, oh, this is a bit dodge. With Doherty, I'd always long suspected he might not start at Chelsea anyway, because Emerson's much better defensively than him. That will be the case now. Emerson, I'm certain, will play at Chelsea on Sunday. With Perisic, it was a case of if he doesn't play, he's definitely going to come on. If it's the 1-pointer and you've got people behind him, the likes of Trippier, Zinchenko, who have returned, do well, his price is going to fall. And I don't think he starts at Chelsea if he doesn't start against Southampton. Before I know it, he might be 5.3. So you've got a decision to make. That's the problem. So I took both out. I went with Trippier and I went with Matty Cash, left the money in the bank. Ironically, one of the things I was saying on my deadline stream was I could have gone Reece James and gone a 4.5, but wasn't comfortable that I was going to make the right decision with a 4.5. The 4.5 I would have gone with was Castagno, ironically.
Of course. Yeah.
But no regrets. I think that Cash is disappointing, obviously. I didn't think to keep a clean sheet at Bournemouth anyway. I predicted it for a draw. They have got some good fixtures still to go before I think he needs to bin. Trippier was one you would have definitely hoped for the return he's got. So 0.5 in the bank, time to assess the situation. But when it comes back to potentially wanting to go back to Perisic now in game week 3, it might be that I'm going Ryan Sessegnon on instead. And this is the other problem. So Ryan Sessegnon was very good on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed you said pre-season that he'd been on the old protein shake.
100%, you can tell.
He looked beefy, and it was a good far post header and finish.
The goal was exactly what I spoke about Kulusevski coming on his left and Perisic's late run against Kyle Walker-Peters. That's why I was so desperate to start with him as well. Literally visualising the exact goal that happened. It was just the replacement wing-back scored it. I never considered going with Sessegnon instead, by the way, because my take on it was he really might just be 45 minutes and that might be him out of the team. So, again, if I could have gone back and done it, I'd have probably just started with him.
Any regrets in your squad that you started with?
Yeah, because I hate that I changed that. I wanted Perisic and Doherty. So I ended up with starting with a team that I'm looking at going, I don't like it. Not that Cash and Trippier are bad assets, but they're not the two players that I wanted, right? It's something that I ended up settling on, basically. The rest, nah. No regrets.
Look, you scored 58 points this week. I was 60, so we're in and around the same. The average was high at 57. Primarily, I guess, because a lot of people, if not half the game, would have captained Mo Salah, who did return with a goal and an assist. Any regrets on not going Salah and captaining him?
None, to be honest, because my take on it, as many will have heard, was let's see if we can take it on over 6 weeks with a City Spurs combination. And ironically, if I'd gone Haaland, which you kept telling everyone you were going to do, and I'm guessing you didn't, you went Son, right?
I went Sonny.
Yeah,
I went Sonny.
Then you've done it, haven't you?
Yeah, had I known that we had no centre backs, I probably would have gone Haaland, to be honest with you. But I look at 60 points, and again, I have no regrets. Like Alisson and Trent as a Liverpool double up, didn't see them conceding 2, but they'll be good for a double clean sheet at least 50% of the season, so that's fine. Perisic, I knew probably wouldn't start. Luis Diaz didn't return. That's a bit of a disappointment, and Jesus, but Haaland did well. Martinelli did bits for me. Cancelo is the most OOP left back going return for me. And Kulusevski, obviously, under 10% ownership. So you probably say is a differential that I went with. And he did the business for me as well. So 60 points there, where my 3 Liverpool are worth 4 points between them. That's not going to happen very often.
Same. That's where you feel like
not going to happen very often.
You're kicking yourself. I mean, look, if you look at that, so I'm saying 6 weeks, Salah. So you can say basically at the moment I'm 14 points down after 1 week. Clearly, that's not a good start, is it? But I think there's 5 weeks to go on that judgment for me. I'd picked a team saying that I wouldn't wildcard early. It's not to say that I can't or change my mind, but I don't intend to. So went with something a little bit more consistent to picking. I mean, Trent, Robertson and Diaz, how often are they going to return 4 points? I mean, he's not going to be often.
No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
There's no drama.
I have to chalk it out as an anomaly. Yeah.
My returnees were Trippier 7, Cancelo 7, Ramsdale 6, Sonny 10 with the armband, Martinelli 8, and Haaland 13. So look, 58, where essentially I'm behind because of that, because I didn't go with Salah. So people going, James, it's not that it's irretrievable after 1 game week.
No.
As I said, I picked a team because the target's to finish first, even though it's the impossible dream. And just doing the same thing as everybody else is not going to do it. So I'm happy to take it on. I'm not going to reverse it. Like there isn't a circumstance here, I think, where I end up shoving Mo Salah in my team this week. He says probably gets multiple injuries, has the wild card and thinks about it differently. But as I said on Friday, it's not like I did think Mo Salah was the best captaincy in game week 1. I did think he'd probably be the highest scoring player in game week 1. So nothing's come as a shock.
No,
that he's returned. Is Fulham away. You expect him to do the business. Yep. There were more challenges coming ahead. The only one I'm really worried about is kind of Bournemouth in game week 4. But even that week, I've got players I can take him on with.
Yeah, and Bournemouth kept a clean sheet right yesterday. So I think let's judge Bournemouth after Man City and how much or how much they destroy him by or don't. I think we judge Bournemouth after this weekend because that will give us a better indication of how they'll do against Liverpool in game week 4.
It'll be interesting to see what the Salah captainers, those who are perma-cap, what they do this week. Home to Palace, it's a decent fixture. We know they're not the sort of team. Liverpool aren't going to beat Palace 4-5-0, I don't think. I'm sure they'll win, but I don't think they'll batter them. Is there a debate to go with a big Norwegian?
No.
I mean, he looks rubbish, doesn't he?
Honest to God, no, we'll get to that because this is the last game we're going to talk about because we always go in order. But you talked about Liverpool up against Palace. That's probably the best place to start because where the season kicked off on Friday night, mate, was Arsenal's 2-0 away win at Palace. In a strange way, I predicted 3-0, you predicted 1-0. It landed slap bang in the middle. The actual game probably was closer towards your prediction in that Arsenal had their moments. They blitzed it at the beginning, but then Palace came back into it, but never enough that I thought they would win the game. They might have got a draw, but I never felt they did enough that they would win it. But Arsenal still had quality to get over the line. 2-0, they'll be very happy with that as a start of the season. Very happy with that.
Arsenal were exceptional in the opening quarter of the game. To the point they looked like they were going to go and muller them. It reminded me a lot of a game Palace had with Liverpool back in January, where Palace just gave them way too much respect. It went in 2-0 at half time, and Palace gave them a massive fright in the second half. It's worth saying in that game, Liverpool's African contingent were at AFCON, so unavailable. But from 2-0 down, they frightened the life out of Liverpool and really give them trouble. But in the first half, they were so passive, it just sat off. And the same thing happened here. And it's strange, actually. I feel like there's a bit of a theme here with Palace, in that there's certain games where you think, I think some teams might think, like, oh, let's swing at Liverpool early. Like a bit like Fulham did on Saturday, for example. Let's swing at one of the big clubs early. Palace seem to put more pressure on the longer the game goes on. It's very rare. I was thinking back. It's very rare I can think they played a big six team at home and had a really fast start. It feels like it comes like a momentum. Perhaps it's something psychologically that means they start slow. That said, I think Palace got back in the game because of what Arsenal did, essentially. So Arsenal were brilliant for the call, and I do think they deserve to win overall. They are one of the best teams in this league at 0-0. When there's a goal goes in, shit changes for them, and I don't know why it is. They just invite pressure. Now, you'd look at the front three now with Martinelli, Jesus, and Saka and think, oh, they should be better on the counter-attack. That's essentially where the second goal comes, in fairness. But actually, you look at them and think, they might concede here where really they've been in enough control to have this game finish. Because if Arsenal had been 2-0 up after 20 minutes, nobody could have complained. The bonus for Palace was they were still in it. And I think it's something that Arsenal need to amend as their season goes on. Is not it, whether it's psychological, whether it comes from Arteta, I'm not sure, but they don't play the same way once the first goal, whether they score it or concede it, they don't play the same way once the first goal goes in. And they look a super team at 0-0 very often. A few things to point out. One, many of us kind of spoken about Cancelo and Walker playing inverted yesterday at West Ham. This is ideally what Arsenal want to do as well, but they couldn't because of obviously Zaha really holding the touchline. So what that meant was Zaha was obviously one-on-one a lot with Ben White, which I think meant Saka did a really good job kind of helping out and trying to give him support. It meant that Saka offensively was quieter than we'd expect in a game. That shouldn't be a problem in forthcoming games, I don't believe. So if you're a Saka owner, like you've got your attack in return, you're probably quite happy anyway. But performance-wise, he felt like to one of the front three was the least involved. Martinelli missed a sitter before he scored. And that came from a block shot from Jesus, who also put on a brilliant chance for Odegaard in the second half, where Odegaard overdid it. You know what Jesus' XA was on Understat on Friday? Because I went to check this out.
0.7.
No. I could probably give you another 0.7 guesses or 7 guesses and you wouldn't get it. 0. This is where you have to be a little bit careful with stats, because from an FPL perspective, the Martinelli miss at the start, Jesus would have got an assist. Block shot, falls to Martinelli, scores. The second one, Odegaard, if Odegaard takes a shot, I don't know what the XA on it is, but it was a big chance. Because Odegaard don't release a shot, he don't get nothing for it. So this is where your combination of eye test and stats becomes really important, because Gabriel Jesus did not deserve to walk away from that game with a 2-pointer. And honestly, with Leicester at home, Bournemouth and Fulham, and then Villa at home in the next 4, anybody who's selling Jesus, I can honestly say, I think you're only doing it because you didn't watch the game. Because he was great. He was great.
I'm sticking just to the double up for now. You've got the treble up with Ramsdale and goal, and I think Ramsdale and goal is perfectly good as well. I don't need to add to Martinelli and Jesus. I think Arsenal are perfectly good to stick with for a little while. Palace, on the other hand, with Liverpool and City as 2 of the next 3, you avoid. But keep an eye on their performances, because once that little run gets out of the way, maybe you do want to go in there.
Do you not consider one of them Arsenal defenders for Perisic?
Why?
Because Perisic is not starting Sunday at the moment, mate.
Yeah, but then on Thursday night, you were saying that he's going to start, and so is Doherty. So I'm disregarding opinions of people starting and not starting. Okay, if he's on the bench, he's on the bench. If he gives me a 1 point, he gives me 1 point.
Trying to help you.
Who cares? But it's fine. He come off the bench and pick up a return. I'm not bothered.
He absolutely can do that.
Worrying about someone starting adds a dimension to this game that I can't be bothered with. So I'm just gonna.
All right, yeah, but at which point, like this just very briefly, because there's stuff I want to come back to on Palace. But if Perisic doesn't start at Chelsea and he doesn't start at home to Wolves, at which point do you go, hang on a minute? Because that's it. I could have been stubborn and done the same thing. I went, hang on, it's right in front of my face. It's game week 1. It looks like now he's not going to start. If I don't change it, I'm just being stubborn about it. And that sounds a little bit like what you're doing.
But have you bought him as a backup?
Not at all. I think he'll be first choice.
So then he'll get in at some point.
Yeah, but he might not be first choice till September, October, Suj.
There's a lot of games
There's a lot of games to be played between now and then.
Yeah, if he doesn't start at Chelsea, let's have this conversation. But until then, I'm going to stick with him.
All right. Zinchenko's positioning was quite interesting during the game as well, by the way, because he did the whole inverted thing, but actually quite a lot. He pushed on really high down the touchline, particularly early in the game. Saliba was great at centre back, and that's going to put on real competition once Tomiyasu's back fit and stuff. Obviously, it's worth saying Tierney's available as well, but I don't think Arsenal are going to rush him back. So I foresee in the immediate Zinchenko staying at left back. Palace, as they played centrally, and missed the big chance of the game, which there, if he scores at 1-1, maybe they go on and win possibly. And Joachim Anderson, I know like the guys were speaking about it a lot, but he's something that teams are going to have to watch out for a little bit, because what Palace always have is pace up front. What they lack a little bit is in the likes of Edouard, who missed the big chance which Ramsdale saved in the first half, Jordan Ayew, there's no real confidence on scoring at the moment. And this is going to hold Palace back this season, is actually finishing chances. Because if you remove Zaha from that team, you begin looking at it and going, who's scoring for them? Which is a problem. So, and because they're good defensively, I think that's why a lot of their games will be quite low scoring for the immediate. They may well add a forward before the window shuts. Joachim Anderson completed 12 long balls. That's a lot. They were looking really direct, but that didn't have much in the first half. It was nearly all in the second half when they're behind. And obviously at that point, Arsenal have gone deeper, which they change as soon as they score.
Fulham managed to take the lead twice against Liverpool. Liverpool clawed back a draw. Unexpected. Absolutely unexpected. Of the 10, 11, 12% that went with Mitrovic at the start, I hope you played him rather than benched him, but well done for getting those points. Salah obviously did the business.
I think it was over 50% of people had Mitrovic didn't start him.
Yeah. And understandable, right? Liverpool.
Yes and no. He's a penalty taker.
Not understandable because, 6.5 million, if you're going to have him, play him.
Exactly what I was saying about Pereira.
I don't know what the rest of their squad is, but
Liverpool could win 5-1, he could score. And that's how I would look at a player like that, right? So he's obviously got his price rise already, which is he's understandable that people have gone there. And I think I've said it a lot in pre-season. Don't judge Mitrovic on what you saw 2 years ago. This will be a different Mitrovic, and Fulham will play to his strengths. Looked a lot fitter on Saturday, particularly late in the game. There was the one instant with the Cruyff turn and stuff, and you think he's enjoying himself here as well. Fair game to him. They played to his strengths. The first goal is an exact example of that. Proper cross, getting on the fullback at the back post. Sure, Trent doesn't defend it well, but I think even if Trent had tried to defend it well, I think Mitrovic probably still scores in fairness.
So
yeah, absolutely.
So
very reasonable option. Wolves and Brentford in the next two. It's fine. Then there's a more difficult run. Then there's a nicer run for Fulham. But I think if you're going Mitrovic, just be a little conscious, probably going there for consistency. You have to give them mass credit, right? Because Harry Wilson got injured on the eve of the season. They haven't got like new defenders in as yet. Obviously, Shane Duffy's coming on loan. That's not going to be the long-term solution for him. I actually thought Tim Ream played quite well, actually, a player I've been really critical of in pre-season. But players contributed, the likes of Cabano, De Cordova-Reid in the wide areas, stretched Liverpool. Paulinho looks he's a player I researched a lot. Suj knows, obviously started him in Sky Fantasy.
So did I. 5-pointer. He's a 5-pointer week in, week out in Sky.
He's got this really unique long stride. He just looks massive, where his legs just get interceptions in. Pressing really good. They went and hounded Liverpool. It wasn't just a case of they just sat off Liverpool and countered on them. Like they really went and got in their faces in the first half. Then understandably sat off a little bit in the heat and because of possession in the second half. But yeah, they were full value for a point, Fulham. Be interesting to see how expectation might change now. Because now you look at them with the next two, Wolves, Brentford, and suddenly think, oh, they can get something. But actually, as I said, there's tough games to come afterwards. I wouldn't be rushing to Mitrovic personally.
No. But what about Darwin on the other side?
As I said, if you go there, it's consistent. With Darwin, I mean, Liverpool didn't have a shot on target till he got on the pitch. Remarkably. And obviously, it completely changed. He gives them a very different outlet to obviously Firmino. Firmino wants to drop in. I think one of the problems Liverpool had at the moment is, and all we've done really since he arrived is completely praise Luis Diaz. He's a super player. But when Firmino drops in, Mane and Salah would both fill that space so well. Salah still did it. Didn't see a lot of the ball early in the game. Diaz doesn't do it so much. So there's a link there that's probably a little bit of a problem with people running in behind. When Nunez comes on the pitch, obviously you've really got back to the kind of front three. I think it's more natural for Diaz as well, having him there. There is a little theory at the moment that Nunez might nick a lot of Salah's XG and stuff, which I think has some merit because Nunez XG was 1.67 from when he come on and 0.49 XA compared to Salah 0.39 and 0.53 respectively. But I also think Nunez is going to help Salah because if Diaz isn't going to kind of make those runs from out to in the same way Mane did as well, Salah's going to be easier for people to mark. I think we all know that eventually Diaz is going to get in this team. He just might not be yet. That's all. Because the impact of using him late in the game is definitely a big factor at the moment. They might look at it and go, well, if we can only get an hour out of him, which we don't know where he's at fitness-wise, do they then want to take him off when it's more useful to have him later in games? It creates a bit of chaos as well.
He's obviously scored in the Community Shield. He scored and assisted again. But if he keeps scoring goals and coming on, then the pressure to play him and start him is going to get bigger and bigger for Klopp. I'm debating in my head right now. I still want to see it. Like Nunez at 9 million. Will he outscore Diaz at 8 by enough over the season to make me want to have 3 up top: Jesus, Darwin, and Haaland?
I don't think we can answer that one way or the
other.
No,
we can't. But it's a question right now that if the evidence in the next couple of weeks comes to light, then Darwin at 9 versus Diaz at 8, I think is going to be a really interesting debate. If he carries on in the current vein of form that he's in, it's going to be very interesting to see.
So here's what we got, right? We're into 2 games of our review from game week 1. Last year, forwards all absolutely terrible. And we're now looking at spending how much on like Haaland, Mitrovic, Darwin, Gabriel Jesus. I mean, all 4 of them are very good options, I think. Darwin, I wouldn't go near yet, personally.
Not yet. But I would be very surprised if I did own him at some point this season.
I think you're probably right. I think, and it makes it interesting in terms of the Liverpool assets longer term as well. Again, you look at it and go, at that 9 million forward bracket, or even midfielder bracket, there isn't anything really. He's not far to obviously jump up from Jesus to Darwin Nunez. Again, I would not be doing that at the moment.
No,
with what Arsenal
not that move. It's
in
an
the next few
to,
weeks.
Yeah.
And you're also probably not coming. If you're selling Kane, you've presumably already done it to Haaland. And if you haven't, you're in trouble. We'll come back to that. But you could go obviously Kane to Nunez. But really, as yet?
Not yet. Not for me.
Not for me.
But
We'd see more. But yeah, he's going to cause some chaos in terms of accumulating things. I think he's going to miss some easy chances as well, by the way, by the looks of it. But he will score plenty. A little bit like we always say about City, right? If you play up front for Liverpool, unless you're a player like Firmino who always wants to come towards the ball and link the play, if you're an out-and-out kind of 9 as he is, you're going to score goals. It'd be very difficult not to. So, yeah, definitely a player to watch. If you've gone with Nunez already, you're going to keep, aren't you? Because 100%. You're going to be really happy with what you've got so far. And I think that's it. Sit there, go with it, and know that, yeah, soon he's going to, it could even be as early as this week, he's going to start. Trent, Robertson, and the like defensively, they're not one-game picks, guys.
No, 100% not.
Just crack on and move on.
Bournemouth 2, Aston Villa 0. Jefferson Lerma, we all banked on him to get a yellow card. Instead, he popped up with a goal. Instead,
did he not get booked?
He did not get booked, James.
Wow, that's very impressive.
horror. But we didn't expect this to be the net outcome of this game. Everybody was thinking perhaps Bailey might be the place to go. And he didn't get booked. It was Ramsey that ended up picking up the yellow card. But yeah, Bournemouth 2-0 home win. They've got to be happy with that.
Of course, absolutely. And I made the case that I thought they would get something to you on the Patreon pod on Friday.
Yeah, you had a drawdown, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think they'd win, but yeah, I did fancy him to get something from the game, partly because of what's to come, i.e., the game's going to be really important, and Villa are still very hit and miss. And I mean, absolutely proven. I mean, you could make a case to say Villa's performance was the worst of the weekend, really. I'm sure there's some Man United fans who will disagree with that. What we didn't expect from Bournemouth is what we got, and full credit to Neil Grover, because he told us on Correspondent Week that Parker wants to get to a back three, but they haven't got the players to do it currently. So Lerma didn't get booked Suj because he didn't play in midfield. He played as the right-sided centre-back with Metham central and Lloyd Kelly to the left. They played Jordan Zamora and Adam Smith as wing-backs. Ben Pearson was a surprise selection in midfield with Billing. Marcus Tavernier played. XA really interesting at the weekend, by the way, but might have picked up an injury. And Kiefer Moore played up front, which no one I saw calling, which meant, unfortunately, Dominic Solanke played in a more withdrawn position. And that's the big takeaway. That is that a lot of us are kind of looking at that. Oh, when can I get the like of a Mitrovic or Solanke in where the fixtures swing? And you can make a case Mitrovic's got a good couple now, it's fine. But Bournemouth have this brilliant swing from game week 5. If Solanke's going to play in the position he played against Villa, he's not going to be an option. You'd actually be more looking at Kiefer Moore.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. So they're going to add players. They've got a new goalkeeper deal is agreed with Neto, and they've signed this centre-back, Sensei, as well. So they're starting to make a few moves. This lets them swing at the next 3 fixtures with a lot less pressure.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, I think if I listened to a Bournemouth fan, right after the first 4 games, you got 3 points. Probably would have taken it. If they can nick a draw from any of those 3 games coming up, 4 points from 4, it's brilliant. Then coming into a nice swing. So really, really good result for them. And Villa's team surprised too, right? Ollie Watkins not in the team.
Mm-hmm.
Big surprise. Don't get that. I don't get why that suddenly come. All through the end of last season, we had the impression that Gerrard had clearly made a decision that there was a preference of Watkins over Danny Ings. I don't know what's changed that, what the thinking was as well. Because Danny's very different in the sense that Ollie Watkins just wants to stretch. He wants to play on the shoulder all the time. Ings doesn't. So Coutinho also he's a player who's not going to run in behind, right? He wants to see him field the ball. So if Bailey's not running in behind all the time, you're very static. You become very easy to defend against. And the one thing looking at the numbers from the weekend that really stood out was the amount of long-range shots that Villa had. Loads.
Yeah.
Loads.
That's what I noticed in the highlights. Just but nothing of great quality or you don't fit. If a team wants to keep taking pop shots from outside the box and then
John McGinn had in the game 3 shots from an almost identical kind of half space right-hand side position in the game, or 3 from almost identical positions. I don't know if there was a targeting on the goalkeeper is the only thing to say that in defence. So they looked at it and gone, keeper might be weak at long range efforts. I don't know. It's not something I don't know enough about Travis to give you comment on that. Might be something to watch out for Kevin De Bruyne in those spaces on Saturday, possibly. That's a really disappointing result for Villa. A lot of people have been throwing this stat around that Steven Gerrard's win percentage at Villa is the same as Gary Neville's at Valencia now. It's worth saying Gary Neville at Valencia, anybody at Valencia should be having a better win percentage in most cases than Villa. But it's not good reading. And it's interesting, actually, that Lampard gets a lot of critique in the media. Gerrard has largely escaped. And I don't know what they're, and you don't, everyone talks about philosophy a lot and stuff, but I don't know what they are, other than I feel like when they're at the best, they get the 2 fullbacks really high up. Other than that, I don't know what Villa are trying to be or what they do.
I heard more and more conversation about who's going to be the first manager to get sacked. And I think Gerrard now, if this doesn't go well in the first 3 months for Villa, is one that I've heard it touted on the weekend after this knee-jerk to this result. But I think there are people that are concerned that behind Hasenhüttl, if Southampton don't do well, this might be the one where it's Steven Gerrard, the wheels will come off and they might make a change there because they have invested in the squad and they have spent money. I haven't got Cash or Dean or anyone from Villa. I avoided the Bailey as well. I don't think it's panic stations yet, but I don't think this is not one. Put it this way. I'd prefer being stubborn over Perisic than you being stubborn over Cash, for example, after 2 or 3 games. If Villa still look garbage after another game or two, you're gonna stay there.
So Cash is meant to be a placeholder for Perisic. You understand it?
Cash. We're talking about Cash.
This is the good news. Go on.
God, this is Manchild's text message to me 2 days ago. What's the league code? And then in his squad that he sent me a screenshot of, he's got Matt Cash, Muniz, and Sterling. And he said, I've got the cash monies, Sterling. I'm going to win FPL. He's bought his FPL team based on players with financial names. Cash is in Manchild's team.
If anybody wants to tweet in and guess who the rest of Manchild's squad is, I can't tell you because I noticed these.
One thing you need to know about the team is I got cash monies.
What's a numpty?
Cash monies.
I saw he's down as a new entry for the league.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. So he obviously didn't enter it in time, but I don't know if his team's live or not. Nutcase. The good news for Gerrard is what's next? Everton at home. Everton at home. That's the good news.
Yeah, that is true. Although they weren't disastrous against Everton.
And there's an important FPL message in that. So, particularly, I think Cash. That there's a chance he might lose price this week. I mean, I don't intend to move him on, to be honest, at home to Everton. I think sometimes you've got to look beyond the money and go, well, actually, if I keep Matty Cash and he does really well against Everton, his price might come back up, actually. Leon Bailey's probably more the one for people they've gone, oh. And there was always the risk in this. And one of the players I obviously mentioned was, look, if it flops, you've got Kiernan Dewsbury Hall there at the same price. You can move it sideways. Now, Dewsbury Hall's obviously scored this weekend as well, just to add to the probably pain on that. But I take it you've seen his goal, Suj.
It's beautiful left foot
wasn't it?
finish.
Wasn't
beautiful. He just hit it, and you're like, "Oh, that's tidy."
It's a long range strike.
He's not going to do that every week.
No,
he's not going to do that.
It was a beautiful goal, but just take a second. And honestly, people will move Bailey to Dewsbury Hall this week. And this isn't to say Bailey's definitely going to start, because there is a little bit of doubt. But just on the face of it, please don't move Bailey to Dewsbury Hall this week. Yeah. Bailey's got Everton at home and Dewsbury Hall goes to Arsenal. Just stop. If you make that transfer, honestly, just ask yourself, is that right? Like, one more week here makes sense, I think, as a Bailey owner.
Agreed.
Unless if you're coming down to like Andreas Pereira and moving the money, different, no probs. But if you're just making that sideways move, like, I'd give it one more week. I really, really would give it the Everton game. It's worth saying, against Everton last year, he came on as a sub and had an incredible 10 minutes where he destroyed Everton as well. So he's got a little bit of, probably going into the game, a little bit of a nice feeling, I've done well against these in the past. These things can matter to players when they're potentially not in form. But all we was hearing was he was really good in pre-season, right? Mm-hmm. And I've not seen enough of the game on Saturday to tell you that he played badly. Yes, there's a chance he can come out the team. But if I own Leon Bailey, I'd sit there, I'd start him, I'd get on with it this week, personally, and reassess afterwards. That's how it always would have been for me if I went with Bailey. 2 weeks, let's see afterwards.
Leeds 2, Wolves 1. I had Leeds down for a 1-0 home win. I can't remember what you had predicted for this. I did think Leeds were going to win.
I went 1-0 Leeds.
Yeah. Oh, you went 1-0 Leeds.
Yeah.
I think I would have got. I can't remember what I predicted.
Which is, I explained to a few Leeds people who were in on my deadline stream, were like, "There's no way we're keeping a clean sheet." It's more a reflection on Wolves, to be totally honest. But they scored a really good opener. Actually, no, it's not really fair, because we're a little bit unlucky at the weekend. This is one of them, was typical pre-season opening day, which probably could have gone either way, but the home team nicked it. I feel like I've seen plenty of those games at White Hart Lane when Tottenham were very rubbish back in the day. We've not played that well, but come from behind and nicked it, and everyone goes home happy game week 1. Bit like that. A few takeaways for Leeds. Jack Harrison, 7 key passes at the weekend is a big number. Big number. But just be a little cautious that obviously fixtures next few are more difficult. Southampton have got to respond to what they showed me on Saturday. And with the fixtures they've got, they'll very much be targeting to beat Leeds at the weekend. Then it's Chelsea, Brighton. It's a difficult little run. Got Dan James was obviously suspended. And you've got Sinisterra's due back in training this week as well. So there's a little bit of competition for places there. And that's not to suggest that Jack Harrison will come out. It's just to suggest that if you've seen that number and been, woo, which you can do if you see that number, I'd just take a little bit more time on it. They've got this left back problem as well, which is ongoing. Obviously, Strout played there. By all accounts, he did well at the weekend, but it's not the way they want to play. It looked to me from what I've watched that it was more of a 4-2-3-1. And we obviously expect Leeds to be quite narrow, where at times that's going to be 4-2-2-2. And it was kind of flexible in terms of, I wouldn't say Aronson and Harrison were holding the touchline, for example. No, not at all. But to get to that, you need a proper left back in there who's going to be like Christensen on the right-hand side. And I think it looked to me like he was a little bit more brakes on because they couldn't go together. You know, like when Cash and Dean go together for Villa and it looks good. Like that. Can't do it at the moment. So there are little issues that need ironing out with Leeds. I think they need a left back, really, because I don't think fair play is going to be long-term answer for them anyway. I don't see the idea that he'd play Alien out there. So they've got to get a left back in. I think it's really important. For Wolves, they played okay. Was the back four that we thought. Hwang looked quite lively. He's a player I'm quite critical, but looked quite lively in clips that I saw. Morgan Gibbs-White, we believe Nottingham Forest may have upped their bid to deep breath £40 million.
Wow.
Well, if that's true, he's going to go, isn't he?
Yeah, 40 million, take it.
Well, that was the reaction from the Wolves guys on our Slack last night, was if they really are offering that, yeah, fine, take it.
Yeah.
He's a talent, but that seems very excessive if that's what Forest are going to do. But they're obviously going for it, fair play. That would leave them light again. There's links with quite a few forwards. Gonçalo Guedes is the main one getting mentioned, I think, from Valencia. And it might cost similar to what they sell Gibbs-White for, but he's a forward. So they're worth watching. We think Connor Cody might be going to Everton on loan.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of rumours. I had a few people looking at I've heard we were going to try and jump in just because of the injuries we've got on Connor Cody as well.
That would make sense, by the way. Be a good signing for you short term.
We were going to go for it.
He's a massive Liverpool fan, isn't he? So strange one. But Bradley was right about obviously Kilman and Collins being first choice. I think the fullbacks are quite interesting to watch over the next few weeks. Nori and Johnny. And it's worth saying again, got good fixtures. So similar kind of like with Bailey. If you've gone for Neto and you're sitting there with 0.5 in the bank and suddenly I've got to get up to Martinelli quick, or he's got Fulham at home this week, at least give him the one more would be the advice. And I'd have that across the board on Wolves players. Sarr absolutely should have saved Rodrigo's opening goal. It was an error for him, really. And he also had a really strange moment afterwards, didn't he? When he walked the ball into the goal. So I think if they don't beat Fulham on Saturday, people will start getting nervous. Really nervous about what's to come.
And it's going to be a tough game from what we've seen from Fulham in the first day. I don't think it's going to be easy for them at all. I can easily see Fulham going and getting a result there. So, yeah, they're very much on the wait and see as opposed to anything that makes you want to steam into them. Newcastle 2, Forest 0. We expected a home win for Newcastle. I just thought Forest might get onto the score sheet with a 2-1, but Newcastle 2-0.
Newcastle were very, very dominant. It was almost identical to a goal we scored against Burnley a few years ago. It was interesting to know Dan Burn had 4 shots at the weekend as well. So they were having to go from centre-back. And Simon Bibby, FPL Bibbs, spot on that he thought it would be Sharon Burn rather than Botman starting. Didn't hear anybody else calling that, really. He got it absolutely spot on. I'm sure Botman will come into the team at some stage, but those two, I think, will probably stay for the moment, actually, and Botman will have to work his way in. Forest were well beaten. It was a surprise, actually, having watched quite a bit of this back, that they got through the game as long as they did. Newcastle were a class above. 2-0 kind of flattered them a bit. That was the minimum they deserved. Bruno in midfield. I mean, Christ, he's so good. He played a deeper role in this game, which is bad from a fantasy perspective, to be totally honest. But just runs it. It's just fluid. Everything is so easy for him. I don't know how. Well, we do know how, but I don't know how none of the so-called big six went for him in hindsight. He walks in. Yep. I mean, look at United, Man United.
Desperate for a midfielder
would just
right
walk
now.
in the team. He'd walk in the team and be their best player, as he is for Newcastle at the moment. Joe Linton, lots of good running for him. I think Forest had an issue where they got a bit overrun in midfield with the two, because they picked quite a brave formation basically. It's kind of like 5-2-1-2. Midfield runners might be a little bit of a problem. Forest quite early in the season, something to keep an eye on possibly. Not that in the upcoming games, it's not too much of an issue actually, from the opponents that they've got, but it's worth bearing in mind. Joe Linton had a few good efforts. Great, lovely goal from Callum Wilson. Almiron did start, but he's the one obviously going forward. His place would be at risk. I think, again, if you have gone with him, I'd give him Brighton away and then reassess personally, rather than that be your panic move. Trips is in for me. The interesting one for me would be obviously if he stays for me beyond game week 2, because I was looking at him as right, first 2, then move back to a Tottenham player in game week 3, and was probably looking at cash, right, first 4, then move back to a Tottenham player as well. Was my thinking. So obviously it's City in 3 and Liverpool in 5. When it comes round, look round and go, do I need to get rid of him? No. Like, even if I don't fancy it, I'm to City, Andreas Pereira, I'm to Brentford. Could just play Pereira, couldn't I?
Yeah,
he's one option,
exactly
rather than force the transfer, particularly if it's not clear on what's happening with Tottenham's wing-back situation for me in my circumstance personally. Yeah, good opening day for Newcastle, which I think was really important because they do walk into a tough run of fixtures now. Not a disaster for Forest. They'll give you a game on Sunday, I'm sure.
I was about to talk about that. I mean, Joel Linton's a funny one because at 6 million, I don't think he's priced too badly. At 5.5, I think more people would talk about him, but he's one that the period of time where he was a joke is bigger than the period of time where he's actually been decent. And I think we need, if he's good for another 3 or 4 months, then suddenly the weight will be, actually, we know Joel Linton is a good player for longer than we know him as a shit player. And now we can accept that he's a good player. When players are rubbish for ages and then they're good for a little bit of time, you're like, yeah, but is he going to go back to the old Joel Linton?
No.
But no, I agree. But we need that evidence.
But in terms of evidence for fantasy, I'm not convinced, to be honest. I know Hindu Monkey's been very much pushing the Joel Linton train this pre-season.
Is he? Yeah.
He was unlucky at the weekend not to get a bit of a haul, actually. So, yeah, he's a player to keep an eye on. In terms of, like, is he going to return to shit? No, Eddie Howe and the coaching staff and Joel Linton himself have done incredible on this remodeled position, which essentially came about by a complete freak and accident. And he looks brilliant in it. Now it's a case of Joel Linton, Grimares, and which other one, whether it's Willock who played at the weekend, whether it's a Longstaff, whether they buy someone else, and obviously someone to play right-hand forward. I think that's the one. I'm pretty convinced Newcastle will buy a right-sided attacking player before the window closes.
And you're right. I think Forest will give us a tough game. I think the thing with the Forest away game at the weekend for West Ham, we'll come on to West Ham, is who's gonna play at the back there. What's the attitude going to be to this lack of central defenders? Because Maxwell Cornet has signed, wasn't eligible. Play there. He was. No, he's not going to play centre back, mate. But if he wants to go to 5 at the back and move Creswell into more of a centre back and play Cornet left wing back, that changes up the formation. Then he can play Zuma in the middle and Ben Johnson right-sided centre back rather than 2 in the middle. But I think what happens against Forest is dependent on what happens around there. But it'll be an interesting game, and obviously first game at the City Ground for them. First home game back in the Premier League for how long? Yeah, one to definitely keep your eyes on. You were at your stadium, of course, for a 4-1 win against Southampton.
Stop the count.
I was out on the piss, and I had all the goal alerts popping up on the phone, and Ward-Prowse scored early. I mean, technique on his finish to keep the ball from not just skyrocketing is something else. It was good, but ended up being fairly routine for you guys. Very happy with my Kulusevski pick. I just think that your front three at their best is Kane, Son, Kulusevski, I don't see. I think that's going to be the majority of games your front three, and 8 million for him. He produces the output of the others, or did at the back end of last season. Kulu, very happy with as a pick.
He was man of the match on Saturday by absolute miles. And in terms of stop the count, by the way, I did tweet on Saturday saying I'd rather not, because I think I've got a lot of enjoyment to come in the next 37 games, actually.
For sure. Decent for Spurs, right?
It's interesting.
Apart from conceding a goal, you want to keep a clean sheet, but so what? 4-1, take it.
It's the only real chance. I think Aribo had one kind of in the second half at 4-1 late on from a difficult angle, low XG. But yeah, I was comfortable as really. Yeah. You do, obviously, when they score and you go in front, you think, oh no, shit the bed already, game week 1. But yeah, I mean, from the moment we equalised, which to be honest was the first real chance we'd had in the game. Yeah, very, very, very easy. 4-1 was about a right reflection of the game. Interesting on Kulusevski. There's possibly a lesson here in this. I wouldn't say he had a bad preseason, but there was no attacking returns in his preseason, whereas Kane and Son were absolutely bang on it. And so you reflect on that, and particularly obviously Kane in preseason, it was the one was especially quiet at the weekend. You reflect on that and start asking yourself, so why? Not that Kulusevski was bad in preseason, not at all. I wouldn't have put anybody off going for him. But you start wondering, is the return sustainable, what he showed last year and stuff? I think the matchup obviously really helped him at the weekend. The fact that Djenepo played left wing back and Salisu at left-sided centre-back, he can be a 9 out of 10. He had one of his 4 out of 10s. I mean, the own goal is
I'm trying to think if I've seen a worse own goal.
He's up there, isn't it?
I
nearly fell into the next row laughing.
It's like a tap-in. If a striker scores a tap-in, that's the own goal equivalent of just...
You just would not expect a footballer to react in that way.
Anything but...
It's literally,
put your foot through.
Across your body, right foot out, I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
And the thing is, there's that 2-1, right? With 2-1, you've only got a 1-goal lead, and you might be dominating the game, but you always feel at 2-1.
Absolutely. I mean, I made that exact comment to my dad.
Nerves, right? You're like,
at half time, it's like, this should be in the bag. I'm like, yeah, but you don't wait to get the 15 minutes to go and Ward-Prowse start smashing corners and free kicks in and stuff.
But then to give you that comfort zone in such a comical way is the pressure so much, and then you can just kind of cruise out the rest of the game.
But he was absolutely on fire, Kulusevski. Now, he's another one. You look at it and go, he's Chelsea away this week. If you're like a Luis Diaz owner, like I am I going to shit myself and go to Kulusevski this week? No, I'm not. And I think just come back for it. It's not the week, is it? If you've decided all of a sudden off the back of that, the weekend, oh my God, Kulusevski is the best 8 million. Fine, crack on, do it. But I'm telling you, as amazing he was, and he was amazing, what he was up against on Saturday was absolutely rank, wank, bad. Honestly, they were toilet Southampton, not good at all.
So it's basically owners keep, because he'll pop up with returns anytime. And if you don't own him, wait.
If you've gone, you went.
And if you don't own him, wait. Yeah, he's not moving anywhere.
Yeah, of course. No. I wouldn't say sell him because it's Chelsea. No, not at all. There's good fixtures afterwards. I just wouldn't be steaming in necessarily when he's going to be up against Koulibaly at the weekend in terms of a direct one-on-one. He's different, isn't it? You can't compare the two.
Yeah. The Kane to Haaland move, if people hadn't done it yesterday and they've got no money in the bank, you're done.
I saw Mr. Mark Southerns made a brilliant comment on Twitter about the pricing being kind of like engaging, so people can have all their best players and keep the less engaged player playing, right? And yet you throw in this nuance when no one actually explains to you how price changes work.
Yeah.
Then most of us in the community know 1:30 in the morning or whatever it is, depending on volume and stuff. And it was good to see that the price sites were being accurate, saying, yeah, they're going to switch over last night and stuff. And they did. That's a good sign for what's to come, I think. But yeah, if you're sitting there now and going, well, I want to go Kane to Haaland, well, I'm sorry, unless you've got money in the bank, you can't. You've got to take a -4. And this is why, for me, listen, anyone who started with Kane wasn't wrong as such, right?
Yeah. Spurs will
Southampton
rarely
at home,
score 4 goals and him not pick up a return.
more, and Son only to get an assist. So, only the 8 attacking returns, if you will, and only 1 between the 2 of them. I mean, Son should have hauled. Kane only really had the 1 chance, which was well saved by Bazzuno late in the first half. He laid one on for Son. He didn't hit it well in the second half. So I think the reason I started with Haaland was exactly this, was knowing that unless Haaland looked really off it against West Ham, no matter what Kane did against Southampton, people are going to dive into this move. And of course, if it landed like this, everyone's making the move. And obviously, there'll be people listening to this who can't do it. Like, honestly, I will tell you, take a -4 and get it done.
How would you feel about the Son to KDB move? For me,
thinking about it,
because it's a luxury move. I don't need to do it at all. I'll still have attacking coverage from you in Kulu if I make that move, and I've got Haaland already anyway, so I've got attacking coverage there. I don't need to double up on particularly.
Yeah,
but you still think that the Son to KDB move is one that people should consider?
Yeah, I'm strongly thinking about it. It's no slight on Sonny at all. It's
no,
just
of course
more
not.
With KDB, looking at it, 3 of the next 4 at home. His record in home games is staggeringly good. Bournemouth, Palace and Forest are those 3 home games. The issue in it is, I'm obviously tempted to reverse it. So do I really want to go Son to KDB, KDB to Son, and then back again, for example, for 4 and 5? Well, no, Son would be a more difficult sell in 4 because it's Forest away. And to be fair, it is City's hardest one of the 3 home games, being against Crystal Palace, you would think, on paper. If I go Son to De Bruyne, what you have to think about is, what am I doing for captaincy in game week 3? With no Salah, no Tottenham. So am I captaining the Man City player at Newcastle, be it Haaland or De Bruyne, which is okay? Am I comfortable going Gabriel Jesus away to Bournemouth? These are the sort of things I need to think about. I need to think about game week 3 before I make my decision really on game week 2. Because on the face of it, De Bruyne at home to Bournemouth, Son at Chelsea, there's not too much to think about here, actually. It's not to say that Son can't outscore Chelsea at the weekend. He can. We know that he can on the counter-attack in these games do really, really well. But the likelihood is De Bruyne will get more than Son at the weekend. And Everton, so, yes, I am strongly thinking about it. Yeah, he ain't moving on to Everton yet, mate.
No. Why? Who do you want to talk about? Southampton being shy?
Yeah, I do need to speak about that a bit, but just briefly on the wing backs, I generally, Suj, I really think you should sell Perisic.
Okay. Noted.
We've covered it at the start.
And ignored, but noted.
I also would not advise people to go and buy Ryan Sessegnon yet.
Yeah.
I'd keep the watching brief. I think most people who, like me, took the decision to say, right, I'm going to pull out of this now because I'm not sure what's happening, was all of the same opinion. Let's judge it after Chelsea and see what we think then. Southampton, team selection was absolutely bizarre. I asked Matt in pre-season, clean sheet wipeout, about Valerie. I said, any chance? He said, no, only if there's an injury crisis. He came off at half-time. He brought Jack Stevens on. So Bella Kochop, who looked like he had the nod in pre-season. I don't know if there was a decision made that he just decided, I don't fancy Bella Kochop going up against Son. Possible. They played 3 in midfield. It looked for brief periods early on like Romeo was going to play like a 10, which is just fucking weird. Thought Lavia played quite well. Ward-Prowse played quite well. The rest weren't up to anything. It started Adam Armstrong randomly when Stuart Armstrong and Joe Aribo had been doing quite well. He brought Stuart Armstrong on at half-time for Adam Armstrong, which then took away the one centre forward they did have on the pitch, bearing in mind they're losing. And Che Adams sat on the bench for the whole game. Do you know what he did, in all honesty? As much as we can say, Tottenham were great, he felt a little bit like he was still treating the game like a pre-season friendly to me, Hassan Hootel. And I wouldn't therefore be that surprised if they do really well against Leeds and it's prep for that and they've just taken a swing at it. But honestly, if they defend like that for the rest of this season, there's every chance they will go down.
Everton nil.
There's rumours this morning about selling. There's rumours this morning about selling Adams as well.
Che?
Yeah, I don't know what they're thinking. Why was he not involved? Doesn't make any sense. Sorry. Yeah, I know you want to get onto Everton Chelsea.
Well, I want to get through all the games, mate, before it's Gameweek deadline stream. But Chelsea nil, Everton nil, Chelsea 1. I watched this game. Quite pissed, to be fair, but it wasn't particularly exciting in any way, shape, or form. Really, Jorginho, classic, good old little lollipop and penalty, and that's it.
I think the game was what most of us expected it to be, considering Everton's woes and Chelsea also not being, let's say, in peak condition at the moment in terms of what's happening around the club. Interesting, Ben Chilwell suddenly got the start, which I don't think was intended. It looks like they're allowing Marcos Alonso to be one of a queue of players who probably won't be registered by Barcelona before the weekend. Reece James,
not to the people's poll, if you want to talk about that, just listeners while you're there. People's
possibly
poll probably be done by the time people listen to this, to be fair, but Barca's one of the options in that, just saying.
Reece James obviously did play at right wing back. There's bonus points in there for him.
And getting a yellow card. So that's the thing with Reece James. He'll pick up a booking and still pick up BPS.
Same with Cancelo yesterday as well.
Yeah. You're right.
So, yeah, I mean, look, we know Reece James is a great asset. Just bear in mind, they are still getting linked with potential right wing backs. And I know, by the way, that Gary Mansell thinks, and he'll probably talk about it on Clash to Correspondence, he thinks Reece James might play centre back against us. They might switch it up and play Azpilicueta at wing back and Reece James at centre back, which they have done in some of the bigger games in the past. That'll be thinking towards what Sonny might do in that area, for example. So he might play a deeper role against us. Great option, obviously. Front three didn't click for me. Wasn't right. Like Havertz out on the left and stuff primarily. I was expecting it to be more fluid in terms of movement. Didn't really click. Didn't really feel right. I think we've got a chance against them at the weekend. Actually, it's not to say
I think you're going to win.
I'm not saying that, and we'll speak about it more for Clash of the Correspondence this week with Gary and Ricky. But yeah, I'll probably go there as confident as I've felt in a very long time, because we whenever we go there, we get our pants pulled down. They beat us every time, but I think we've got half a chance of giving them a proper game at the weekend. Actually, I know we'll give them a game at the weekend. It's not to say we'll get anything, but I know we'll give them a game. Everton.
I've got you down as a 3-1, mate.
Oh, so, bloody hell.
Come on.
I tell you what, if we go there and win 3-1, there might not be a podcast next Monday, mate. Everton. So, Calvert-Lewin injured. We think he's going to be for a while. Rondon's suspended.
Might even be 2023, no?
No, really?
No. I heard a rumour, but let's hope not.
They've got to get an attack, a number 9
striker.
Ilk. To be honest, if Southampton want to sell Che Adams, I think Everton should be all over that.
I heard they're obviously trying to up the ante on Breuer, but I don't know if he'd want to go to Everton.
Good question. He'd certainly get in the team at the moment. Obviously attacking woes. I think a lot of us thought Dele would play up front. That didn't really happen. Anthony Gordon has shown that he doesn't really want to head the ball. He couldn't be more polar opposites than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Defensively, they've obviously lost Mina again. And Ben Godfrey really could be, unfortunately, I've not heard it confirmed, might be a leg break. So that's probably his calendar year done. And you'd make a case that's their 2 best centre-backs. Admittedly, obviously, Tarkowski's in now, and I thought he did fine for a debut. But yeah, it's already building to what we feared for them. These next 4 are huge. Villa, Forest, Brentford, Leeds. 3 of them away. They've got to do something in those 3 away games. And I believe that there's probably capability to do something in those 3 games. Forest at home's a big game as well. They have to do something in these next 4 games, because those are the 4 games for the window shuts as well. And this is part why as well they should have players in the football club. They have to get that organised and done quickly, or you worry about them. Particularly like when you watch things like Fulham at the weekend, you think, oh, they're going to be better than I thought. Bournemouth got a good result of the week. Oh, they might be better than what I thought. Then for the likes of Everton and Southampton, you get nervous for them. You really do.
Yeah. Leicester, this is a Sunday games. Leicester 2, Brentford 2. Didn't get to watch the game, but saw the highlights. But from what I could see from the highlights, I mean, a few of the guys, I mean, De Silva's goal was great. Dewsbury Hall's great. Even Castagne's header was a decent corner from Maddison, wasn't it? And the ball through was Rico Henry played it through to Ivan Toney was a great through ball as well.
Very well finished.
Sloppy defending a little bit. let your man through. But and then obviously from the highlights, I mean, there's a post was hit a few times, a few good free kicks. It felt like a lively game with a number of chances that there could have been more goals in as well.
Yeah, data suggests different. It was one of the lowest XGs from the games at the weekend, actually. Leicester played a back three, which is potentially obviously good news for Castagne and Justin, although Castagne's goal came not as we would have expected it, as a header from a corner. Obviously, Danny Ward has got the nod in goal, and that'll be a lock, by the way, while he's fit. You stay as number one unless they buy someone else. If you've gone for the double up, you should be aware that there's every chance Leicester may buy another goalkeeper. I'll probably give the game away there, haven't I? Martin Dubravka. Leicester could buy another goalkeeper, even if it's as a number two, or to compete with Everton. So, but at the moment, you've got it there. You've got your 1 point for your 8.0 or so. Dewsbury Hall, as I mentioned, I wouldn't steam into. They've got a difficult game at Arsenal at the weekend. I wouldn't see them getting anything at the moment, to be totally honest. But I think whatever you've got, Leicester, if you've already gone on, you were going for at least the first three. So I wouldn't sell the assets either. Maddison is obviously an interesting one to watch out for.
I thought he looked lively.
There's been a lot said over since the game about him being, I think it's only Kane's got more returns of English players in this calendar year. So that's more than the likes of Jared Bowen, for example, which feels surprising, but he did have an extraordinarily good run in May, Maddison. I've not got my eyes on them at the moment. For Brentford, they were shy for an hour, to be totally honest, and switched to a back three themselves, and it changed the game. And brilliant to see De Silva get in and score an absolutely fantastic goal. And I obviously spent quite a bit of Thursday night and Friday morning looking at alternative 4.5s. And I said to someone, it's all shit. What are you going to do? You're going to go for Lavia? And yeah, great. He's going to make 40, 50 passes every week and look good in midfield and get you 2 points. Or am I going to punt on the guy who's got the potential upside? Should he get in the team? He's capable, very capable of getting returns. So very pleased to get a return from him, because I was expecting he'd probably dive in price a little bit, and that goal will obviously keep him nice and safe there for a while. I don't think he'll get straight in, but that goal will cause a clamour within the Brentford community to get him in, because they do absolutely love him as a player, and I think probably eventually he will get back in the team. He might have to change stylistically a little bit, because he's more offensive than the likes of Jensen and Baptiste and perhaps Janelt, who he's competing with. Janelt went back into the back three late in the game when they started chasing it. It's a really good result for Brentford, considering the position they was in. Possibly even a little bit undeserved, but yeah, good for them. And obviously they come into a great run of fixtures, starting from game week 3. Or is it now?
Debatable.
It's Manchester United at home on Saturday.
Who at home themselves lost 2-1 to
I feel like I really
Brighton.
lined up that segue and you just didn't get what was happening.
No, I tell you what, all I want to say is I watched the highlights again on this, as opposed to I was obviously milching around East London. If I was a Man United fan, I'd be so disappointed at how lazy I feel like the midfielders are in defensive work. Like every time Brighton attack the back four for Manchester United, like where's the help coming from? And I just couldn't see it anywhere. I just feel like their midfield may as well be non-existent. And it's pain, actually, to be honest with you. I know with my back four, like with the Rice and Souček will help and do their defensive work and track back and put a shift in. I didn't see any of that from their midfield. I just thought they're just lazy. Fred McTominay, lazy.
They are probably the easiest team in this league to play against. And I think at the moment, on reflection of what I watched yesterday, a lot of us are predicting Manchester United to finish 6th because they're Manchester United, rather than actually what we're seeing with our eyes. Oh, it's United. They won't finish outside the top 6. They'll still finish. Are they really better than West Ham, Leicester, Newcastle? Are they better than Brighton? Are they really?
They're not better than Brighton, mate. Brighton, I think, will finally see their form and football turn into results this year. I think Brighton are a threat for Europe.
Well, Brighton have got to fix their home form because they had the fifth, I think it's fourth or fifth best away record last year. So again, going back to what you said earlier, we really spoke up like we wouldn't be shocked if they went to Old Trafford and won. But we did the same thing. Bottled it. I think, it's Man United, isn't it? First game, new manager, etc. And actually looking at it, and this is very serious for Manchester United because genuinely right now, Brighton are a better football team than Manchester United. And yet, still, as much as we criticise the personnel with players at Manchester United, United do have better players. And this is what I spoke about a lot in the summer, the back end of last season. They are going to have to be patient, their fans, because there is so much to do there in terms of, I think there's mentality issues massively in the squad. There's quality issues clearly, but they do have quality players. Obviously, Ronaldo can win any game on his own, right? If he's actually at it and gets the service and stuff. There are too many players that are underperforming. I know a lot's been said about McTominay and Fred, and they're the easy ones to pick on. Absolutely fine. Yesterday, first home game of the season, I'm watching Rashford and Sancho. What are you going to show me that's new this year to make me think, yeah, great. One penalty area touch each between the two of them in the first half against Brighton. And that is it's even worse because didn't play with centre forward. So it's up to Rashford and Sancho to be high and come in off the flanks and get involved in the game. I mean, to be honest, Ten Hag as well. What is that? Eriksen as 9. If you wanted to play that way, fine, do it with Fernandes. I've never seen Christian Eriksen play false 9 in my life.
No.
And I know him better than most. What is that? He's actually not a great player back to goal, Christian Eriksen. No. He needs to see and feel the game. If it's all in front of him, perfect. You want him back to goal. I know what the thinking was like, he's going to drop into deep line positions and Bruno Fernandes is going to run beyond. You think like Lewis Dunk don't see this coming when you go and try and play the direct balls and stuff. Webster coming in off the flank. It's fine. It was no problem for them. And actually, United got bullied because Brighton went long and direct quite a bit, which Danny Welbeck, who was absolutely brilliant, allows them to do. Absolutely brilliant, Danny Welbeck. If he could stay fit and play like that, he'd go on the plane to Qatar as Kane's backup. Honestly, such a handful when he's in that mood. I'm sure he's 2 weeks away from the muscle pull, unfortunately. That's the way it goes. Brighton tactically really interesting. Back three with Trossard playing this wing back position that actually becomes a front free position without the ball rather than with the ball. It's so interesting to watch. I mean,
the first 30 seconds of the game, from what I saw the highlight, kick off, pass it back to Man United centre back. He's closed down within a second of Trossard, and you're like, oh, like this is 30 seconds in. Wake up!
And this is the point I was saying to people: if you can, try and watch it at the weekend. He's the designated wing back, and yet he's nearly scoring out of position 10 seconds into the game because without the ball, he goes into a front three. It's fascinating to watch the way they do it. And credit to them as well. I didn't like it, but on reflection, it worked. So in the second half, they actually changed to about 4. And March went from like right wing back to like left back, basically. And I think that was fears in terms of Ronaldo pulling onto Veltman at centre back. So they shoved him out to right back, but Webster to the other side of Dunk played at centre back and went with a flat of 4. I actually thought it invited pressure, but they dealt with it. They had the game won. They thoroughly deserved to win. Honestly, if they'd have gone in 3-0 up half time, nobody could have complained. You have to remember, it's easy always to do the critical United bit, but what about giving the opposition some credit? Because I mean, that second goal, they sliced through United. I mean, there were so many positional problems with United, but how often do Brighton do that and then don't deliver at the end? Well, they did, right? Pascal Gross, 6 goals now against Man United. That's like 33% of his tally of goals for Brighton is against Manchester United. They must absolutely hate him. Really good from Brighton. I enjoy watching them 36 times a season, basically. Just not the 2 times they play against me. I'm already looking at it going, oh God, game week 10, 5:30 kickoff. I don't need that in my life.
I'm like, you know who our next home game is.
Yeah, difficult, mate.
Brighton, 2:30 on a Sunday in a couple of weeks, mate. And I think there are 24 things that I'd rather do than go and watch that game, to be honest with you, on a Sunday. I'm not looking forward to it at all. If kind of yesterday's anything to go by, then you can't see Arsenal even coming to ours and winning.
I think the FPL one to watch there for Brighton, he's arguably Welbeck.
Yeah.
Like if they come through the next couple, we've got a really nice run of fixtures, sort of like 4 to 8. And if he's still fit, the only problem is you're coming to a stage there with like game week 5's midweek fixtures. And then you have to start questioning, like, does he play Leeds at home on a Saturday? And then it's Fulham away on the Tuesday. Does he play both? Like, because they'll have, on that form, they're going to want to be really careful with him. A little bit like how West Ham are taking care of Antonio more, I think. They've realised, like, if you keep pushing him too hard, he's going to break down and stuff. Really good from Brighton. Really impressive. And, of course, they've lost the 2 best players as well. And it's the same team.
Yeah.
Without Cucurella and Bissouma, there's nothing new in there.
No.
Brilliant performance. So impressed with them. And that's the only saving grace for United. Is actually, opposition were great.
Well, Brentford next week are not going to make it any easier for them because.
Can I be honest with you? If United set up the same way, they'll get beat at Brentford as well.
Yeah, omens are not good for Manchester
And this is
United.
where, just briefly, like I'd say, for patience and stuff. But if they lose at Brentford on Saturday, which isn't unthinkable, and then they get murdered by Liverpool again, you've already got question marks being asked of the manager. Because I promise you, as much as he needs time, that selection yesterday, I don't know what he's thinking. It's not even like they tried it in pre-season or anything. I don't get it. And he caused part of the problems yesterday. And he sat and he went, they surprised us. They went long. You can see it, do something about it, and didn't correct it.
Yeah. Last but not least was the game at my place with West Ham 0, Manchester City 2. And Erling Haaland has announced that he is here in the Premier League, mate.
I see. I think it's interesting that do you think that one of the reasons you and I were convinced to start with him, I know there was the game week 2 thing, and I'm pretty sure I don't own Salah, so I'm almost definitely going to captain him at the weekend. And I think he probably will be the most captained player in game week 2, by the way, more than Salah, I think. But they'll probably both be over 100 EO. Do you think the fact that we have had the experience of owning Haaland in Champions League fantasy helped us?
Not for me, because I was not really that knowledgeable about European Champions fantasy. Like, I was playing it and I'd pick Haaland because he was good, but I never really looked and Haaland's hauled for me. But Lewandowski, for example, had he joined, say Lewandowski turned up at Man United, he did better for me in Champions League fantasy. That I might have been tempted by him, for example. Haaland always for me was playing at Dortmund, the second best team in Germany, and always will be just that, the second best team in Germany and never better. They do all right in Europe, but they haven't torn it up in Europe. The transition from Dortmund to Man City was a 10% question mark, not even 10, 5%. Like, and it wasn't even a question about will he. It's like, when will he? Does he need some time to be successful and make it more than anything else? So,
but in the group stages of that, how many times over the last couple of years have we captained Haaland, despite the fact he's playing for Dortmund and not for one of the kind of top tier clubs?
He's a goal a game guy, standard. Yeah. And from what I saw yesterday as well, like, the thing is, he's not a guy that will dominate a game and you'll be like, Haaland was mad. He just needs his 2 or 3 moments of opportunities in front of goal, and he'll destroy you, and that's it. He's not the kind of guy that you look at and you're like, like a Messi that's constantly picking the ball up, dribbling, running the game, none of that. He's always there as a threat, and he only needs a couple of moments, and he'll put the ball in the back of the net as he did yesterday. It's difficult. I can understand, from West Ham's point of view, as we're going into the ground, you're looking at the team sheet, like, centre backs is a problem here, and then debating where you've got Johnson and Creswell. One of them centre back. Is it going to be Johnson or is it going to be Creswell? And I would rather that it's neither. And then you look at the bench and you're like, what's going to happen if there's an injury? And the only defender we had listed on the subs bench was Harrison Ashby, who's a 20-year-old right back. And you're like, okay, this is not what you want, ideally, going into City. And then obviously Fabianski got picked up an injury after like 20 minutes or 25 minutes or whatever. You're like, okay, Areola's coming in cold. The problem I felt was in trying to make it difficult for City, we made it easy. So shape-wise, organised and structured. So we made it difficult for them to break us down, which is good. We're making the game difficult for them. But as soon as we get the ball, just give it back to them. And that made it easy for them. And you're like, this is... I've got a bit of respect for the guys for their defensive work and shape. Like, it wasn't easy for City to break us down, but they're so patient and they got all game to do it. If you keep giving the ball back to them, and we made no game plan for having the ball in the first half, like we'd identified that Cancelo defensively is a weak spot. And we allowed him to basically play in midfield with Aki filled that hole at kind of left-sided centre-back. And at no point did we attack it. At no point did Bowen in the first half think, you know what, let me try and at least be the outball and attack Aki or pin Cancelo back. Cancelo just literally was like, solid, then I'll play central midfield if you're not going to want to try and exploit this left-back position. And they're so heavily, they've got a bias on that left now, City. Like, Grealish is the outball. And the point being, like, if we're constantly going to be occupying you with Grealish on this side, then you don't have the ability to attack us on that side anyway. And it became too easy for them. There was moments in the second half where we picked up the ball and tried to play. And when we're brave enough to want to play with the ball a bit, we had a bit of joy, but it was just not enough, really. City was so patient, pulling the strings. Foden was good. And that second goal, like, if you watch it, so you got Creswell and Johnson's left-sided centre-back, and Foden's running in between them. And then Haaland's in between Zuma and Johnson. And Johnson's looking at Foden. Creswell's looking at Foden. And De Bruyne's threaded it in between the two of them because they're both occupied by Foden. And Haaland's gone in behind. And then you see he picked the ball up. And then the way I was looking at it directly behind, the way he just opened his body up with his left foot, you're like, fuck, this is...
Yeah, your angle is actually in line with the angle that Haaland has.
When he ran through, I'm like, shit, he's on his right foot, right? It's coming across on his right side. Maybe he's going to hit his right... Fuck, the way he just swiveled, opened his body up, you're like, shit.
The thing is as well, like, Henry obviously used to do that a lot on the other side, but you can't stop it.
There's nothing. But that ball through, and Johnson's not a centre-back, and you're like, he had no clue that Haaland's in between him and Zuma. Zuma ain't going to catch him. And yeah, you're fucked. You're fucked. Like, if De Bruyne can put a ball through an eye of a needle like that and Haaland can run in behind.
It's interesting because this goal is the goal that, I don't want to say people said City can't score or Haaland can't score for City, but actually can, because you have to remember that once teams go behind against City, his natural instinct is to open up a little bit at some point in the game. So Haaland is going to have these chances. And in terms of De Bruyne,
how did he win the penalty? Ball in behind that he's managed to sneak through.
Shorter
but
distance.
It's still ball in behind that he's broken through. He's beyond the last centre-backs. Keeper had no choice but to bring him down. If Areola hadn't brought him down, you think he's gonna miss that? He's going to finish that on his left foot again.
Shorter distance. Over that, you can obviously squeeze Haaland in. The problem is, once he sees any form of space, and this is where, like, I know you said, like, Areola coming cold. Like, I wouldn't blame him on the penalty.
No, that's why I didn't blame
Haaland's
him.
pace over them first yards it's not human.
No.
It's not human how quickly over 5-10 yards he's gone and away from you. So if there's any form of space in behind, problem. So you mentioned about kind of played into their hands a little bit in terms of you. It's that, because you don't want to allow that space off your line. There's a few goalkeepers going to get sent off, I think, against Man City at certain points this year and stuff, where they think, oh, I've got that. And then you come out and Haaland is so explosive. He's going to just push this past you and go over you, mate.
When a penalty is given nowadays in the stadium, we're like, oh, VAR, this or that. Nothing. Areola just got up and walked. He just walked straight to his line. All the defenders. It was literally one of those where everybody knew. There's no doubt about it. But you know what? City were good. If you're looking at that kind of midfielders around that 7-8 million for City, Foden paid. Grealish played.
Great Phil Foden, yeah.
He was. I think though, if you're going to buy one in FPL, Grealish might be the one. Because they do try and funnel so much of the game through him. He'll frustrate where, the diving around and rolling around. And when it doesn't go well, he looks a frustrating player. But when it clicks for him, he's going to do well. And I think there definitely clearly is an intention to make him the outball and funnel through. If you can afford De Bruyne will always be thereabouts.
The only thing to say about the wide players with City, I think one person who could really have joy again, actually, is Gundogan.
Yeah, he was great.
Because what they're obviously doing, and part of the problem you have, and David Moyes spoke about it afterwards, he said normally they kind of play with one inverted, but they played with both, right? So essentially, and again, that's what I said earlier, like Arsenal were trying to do this in certain games as well. They basically play 2-3-5 in possession. So I don't know how long before eventually we start listing teams' formations as with the ball and without the ball. But with the ball, City basically played 2-3-5. So Walker and Cancelo coming in either side of Rodri, really tight and close together. With the two centre-backs behind, then it becomes a front five. Now, the thing with front fives is, and this might even be an impact for Martinelli and Saka at Arsenal as well, is if you're dominating and you're getting that front five high and early really quickly, I vision it being really difficult for the wide players to get returns. The only way they're getting it is essentially getting crosses in and stuff. Now, of course,
but that they got
I know
all
what
of
you're
the
saying.
finishing.
Grealish coming to Horde, but if I'm getting Jack Grealish or Phil Foden into my FPL team, I'm not getting them in there to assist Haaland. I'm getting them in there because I want them to score goals as well. So I'd just be conscious of that actually, and although I'd say at the moment he's overpriced, if Gundogan keeps Bernardo out the team, you know he's the one that will go running. So against Liverpool, obviously Bernardo played in the Community Shield, and then it was more like a 4-2-4 shape at certain times. Cancelo stayed wider to deal with Salah, didn't deal with it, that kind of thing. Be interesting to see what they do when they play each other again, if they'll just leave Salah that space. You're right. Bowen should have been pulling out and going, we're gonna accept with one short here and make you think about what we're doing rather than just respond to what you're doing. It's the biggest mistake you can make with City is you play to their beat. You need to make them think about what they need to do to counter you, because Guardiola is defensive first. I keep saying it all the time. He will think about how to stop the opposition first rather than how to open up the opposition. So in this system where it becomes 2-3-5, KDB will tend to come to the ball a little bit more, and Gundogan's the one that will be the runner. Doesn't make KDB a bad asset, by the way. He's the one I'm highly likely to go and buy this week. But Gundogan might be the one to watch. It's worth saying there's every chance Bernardo will come back in the team instead of Gundogan this week, right? That's why I don't really think you can go there at the moment. But he may be the one that gets the joy out of this if they play that system regularly.
Yeah. I'm highly looking at KDB this week. So to make from that what you will. The only thing I would add on West Ham, because I don't think there's any assets that are particularly worth looking at, though. Skamaka came on for the last half an hour and he had no minutes pre-season. So again, he was coming in pretty cold. I was impressed with what I saw.
Decent header he had. I know it was offside.
Yeah,
it was decent effort.
But to get it down and put the power in. But his link-up play was much better than Antonio's. When the ball's fired into him, he's looking at who he can bring in. Very mobile for such a big, strong guy. Good touch. Sprayed the ball well. He's going to have had a bit of nerves coming in. I don't think it's going to be more than a couple of games before he's going to take that shirt, mate. I honestly don't think it's going to be more than a couple more games if he plays like that will be working with him. And I think he's a better player than Antonio.
So do you think Antonio will come out the team?
Eventually, yeah. I don't think it's going to take long.
I'm still absolutely thinking of that guy on the train coming back from West Ham last year, trying to tell me that Mikel Antonio was now a better footballer than Harry Kane. Okay,
you needed his phone number, mate. But
I'm sure he's a Planet FPL listener.
Listen, wait till Tottenham. I've got plenty of stories about dickhead fans.
Okay. I look forward to that. By the way,
Honestly.
just one quick question on your game before you finish. How many shots on target Man City had yesterday?
4 from memory, because I looked at the stats after the game. No, two. Sorry, yeah.
The two
shots
goals
on target. Yeah.
So,
look, don't get me wrong. Defensively, we were solid.
Yeah, as much as you played into their hands.
The majority of games this season, teams that will come, we will beat them and we will do all right. I didn't see anything that was like panic stations other than we could have done better in attack. And let's see, we move, right? Cornet's come in, that gives us another body. I'm sure they're working on a couple more as well. We should be going to Nottingham Forest and winning at the weekend, but I don't think it's as straightforward as it might be had we have a fully fit squad.
No, you got to go there and try not to make it like a cup game. You go there and make it like a cup game and the atmosphere, and you saw what they did in the cup competitions last year. You kind of want to kill the game a bit.
Cool, James. That's a wrap on all the games. I mean, we've been chatting for an hour and a half. I think you should tell people what they got to listen to for the rest of the week, and I'm going to dig out all of the questions in the Q&A bit that don't ask about Kane to Haaland.
Okie dokie. People's poll vote is live for your podcast tomorrow. There is the opportunity for us to try and answer the question, because we have done a podcast on Patreon very recently, but specifically, are Barcelona going to be able to register their new signings for the start of the La Liga season this coming weekend? That's one of the options. Another one is to vote on shirt sponsorship in the Premier League at the moment. I read something very interesting at the weekend, which I think is worth highlighting. And also the transfer window, what Premier League clubs need what and how and why before September. The voting is quite close at the moment. That's open to around about 5:30 p.m. via my Twitter feed, Planet FPL Pod. Wednesday's podcast will be Sky Fantasy Football. Thursday, as mentioned, Clash of Correspondents, Chelsea versus Tottenham with Gary Mantle, Ricky Saunders. I'll be streaming Ask James on Friday, probably 3:00, so we can take in all the team news, hopefully. Deadline stream Saturday morning. Our Patreon pods this week are Q&A today. NFTs tomorrow. Suj, we're finally going to do it. Wednesday's Tottenham, where Suj is going to bring some stories about dickhead fans. Thursday's a quiz on Game Week 1 specifically. And Friday will be our Game Week 2 preview show. There's advanced tier videos every weekday this week. And also a new little feature inspired by Doherty and Perisic not being in the Tottenham team, called 5 Minutes Added On.
Lovely, jubbly. I've got a few questions here, James, that I've noticed. If you fancy chucking them in at the end. Right, Mr. B. I'm a Wrexham fan. Which two Hollywood stars do you think would do the best job if they took over ownership at your clubs? And you can't say Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney.
Well, they've taken charge of Wrexham, haven't they? So that's why you can't say them.
Yeah, but they've owned Wrexham for a while.
Yeah, it's well over a year now, isn't it?
Ages.
Years, maybe.
Yeah.
Who's got the most money?
I'll take the Rock. I'll
take the Rock.
Oh no, you can't, mate. I'm having the
Rock.
Rock and Vin Diesel. Listen, you don't score enough goals from corners, mate. I need the two biggest bastards that exist, because all we do is whack it in from corners. I was going to go with the Rock and Vin Diesel.
I just have the Rock. That'll do.
Can you smell it? Can you smell what?
Can you smell what White Hart Lane is cooking, mate?
This is an interesting one from FPL Dunk, James. I don't know if this is a bit of a reaction, but I also think it's a valid question. Is Casado better than Bissouma? Love your pod. I think
him, by the way.
It's probably a case of Brighton thought we can let Bissouma go because we know we've got Casado coming through. And whether or not he's at the same level yet, maybe not, but potentially has the ability to fill those shoes.
Really good player, Casado. More multifunctioning than Bissouma in terms of he can play more different positions, more variety in his game. Yeah, brilliant little player. Just by the way, a lot of people, McTominay should have been sent off yesterday. Casado jumps into the tackle 2-footed as well, by the way. So I think that's probably why McTominay got away with it. Yeah, really good player. Can he be better? Yeah, possibly. Brighton scouting is one of the best in the league. They always go and get these gems from like South America no one's heard of and stuff, and they turn out to be great.
I'm trying to find questions here, James, that we
haven't covered.
Haven't answered.
And you're
struggling. This one we need to talk about. FPL Maldini. Can we send a big shout out to James for the legendary live stream moment where he changed his son's nappy, handled the situation like a boss? I saw the clip and James suddenly turned around and I think my son's ditched his nappy here. He fucking has.
Yeah, that did happen. Can I clarify
mate.
That obviously my son had not shat. Because if anybody thinks I got back that quickly, any father who's ever changed the nappy will know, mate, I'd have been off for about 5 minutes. Get that, throw the bag out in the bin, wash my hands, come back.
It was just the case of sticky tape it back together again.
Just taking it off. I just put it back on him. He was laughing his head off. Apparently, he added nice ambience, so I'm told, to the deadline stream. Maybe stopped me swearing so much. I don't know. Yeah, it was funny. It was good. It's good.
FPL Hindsight gets the last question of the show, James. And it started with, not FPL. So don't scroll past Suj. So people now need to know how they need to start their questions to make sure that they get asked. All drawn Patreon, because we answer them all there. Why is it that all of us in England pronounce Odegaard as Odegaard, but we pronounce Haaland as Haaland? I pronounce him Haaland. They both follow the same rules.
Can
Don't
I
they?
be honest?
Why
This happens a lot, right? Particularly we get new listeners. Someone will go, "That's not how you pronounce this person's name." Okay. One, as you can probably tell, English is my first language, but it's not very good, right? So I don't care. Unless I'm properly, really, really badly butchering a player's name. It's like Doherty is the one, is it? It's Doherty. Okay, fine. I said it slightly wrong. Do you all get the idea of who I'm talking about? Yeah, I think live with it, right? Not professional, just a guy who watches football. Last week was Bazunu or Bazunu or all right, mate. Don't really care, but thanks.
Lovely jubbly. Listeners, hope you enjoyed this first full episode back with football. If you want more Planet FPL content, you can always head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. For everybody that's joined in the last week and a half, and there are a lot of you, we really do appreciate it. It helps keeps the lights on and keeps the editing with Nico, who's dossed off on holiday, useless bastard.
Yeah, you
that
stuck
he is.
with
You
me
ain't
for
even
2
going to
weeks.
listen.
Sorry.
You ain't even going to listen to this, so we can call him out. But it really does help us keep the show going. So you can do that. There's obviously a lot of value that we think we bring with Patreon as well, in terms of cash leagues and Slack channel and additional content and all that kind of jazz. If you got any questions, just ask and we'll always point you in the right direction. But, hope you enjoyed the first weekend of football. Only another 37 left to go. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Play it your way. Cue music, please, man child.